Talk about food sources. It reminds me of folks that use molasses. It's something I used to use a lot. I know people use it every single week. They're adding in molasses. And what I've heard is that if you continue to use that as a food source, you'll have some microbes that feed off of it. Others, not all, feed off of it. And you could be throwing off the balance of the soil food web if you just continue to add molasses in there. Is that true, or is that just bro science?
Well, actually, that's my exact perspective, and it's
Mm.
not just it's not just from my knowledge around select food sources. Like I have microbial media books, and they're about that thick, and all these different formulas with different carbon substrates and these different types of chemical agents select for specific microbes. And so I know for a fact there's a specificity that different media and sugars nurture in microbial communities. And there is a lot of great papers that are published in the scientific literature that shows exactly what you just shared. Where if you feed molasses, and it wasn't even for that long term of a study, it will allow the microbes that grow and can eat or consume molasses very well to grow very well. And the others that don't grow so well or can't utilize that substrate, that sugar so quickly, they won't grow as well. And what you find, and this is a way that I think about it, life, and especially microbe life, is a probability game. And so once you get to a certain threshold or mass as a species, you have a competitive advantage. You're actually taking up space and occupying that space, which means you're occupying the supply, food supply in that space. And so if a food source can bias microbial growth to certain species, then it's also going to predicate the community structure, just like you said.
Wow, that's really interesting. So, would you say that molasses should not be used in the garden at all, or are you for it just once in a while?
I don't like to tell people what to do. You know, people use molasses, they have success. And so that's not the position I would take. What I would say is, I say this consistently, plants feed microbes. It's called exudation. And so from the beginning of time, and molasses is a sugar, and a sugar is a carbon, chains of carbon. Well, the plant gets carbon as CO2 from the air. It cleaves off the oxygen and continues to consume that carbon. And it creates chains of carbons. And ultimately, we're all made of carbon. We're mostly organic, means that carbon backbone. We're mostly carbon. Same for plants, same for microbes. What plants have evolved to do from a long time ago, and the ones that have persisted and succeeded in biology means able to pass their genome to subsequent generations. That's success. Creating a seed and having that seed propagate or vegetate. That's success in biology. But the successful plants that have evolved over time learn that if they consume that CO2 and transform some of that into simple sugars and exude that in the soil, and there's all sorts of varieties of exudate. The microbes will feed on that exudate. They'll grow to these masses and they'll cycle the nutrients. And there's a relationship and an exchange of carbon for different nutrient cycling and soil functions that the plants actually engineer through rhizosphere priming or through exudation. So the priming or that exudation isn't specific. It changes over time, and that chemistry can change by species. That chemistry can change by plant needs. And so, in some ways, I feel like the plants are actually directing the traffic below ground, and they can exude different chemical species and different types of sugars over time, and slight varieties, including some amino acids that they'll trickle in there as well to nurture the community, the microbes, feed them, that support them. And so that's a very interesting way to think about feeding microbes is why do we think we know what's best? The plant knows better, and the plant's going to do it naturally. And so I like to leave that function to the plants.
This clip was brought to you by AC Infinity. Use discount code MrGrowIt15 to save on any of their gardening products.